dear viewers, and welcome to RTD's English News Edition. The top stories. The head of state has received this morning the observers for the Arab League. In Syria, no United Nations truce for Eastern Ghouta. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has received this Sunday morning at the Presidential Palace the head of the delegation of Arab League observers, the Deputy Secretary General of the Arab League and former Prime Minister of Mauritania, Dr. Mohamed Lamine Oulgeig. The delegation was in Djibouti to oversee the parliamentary elections of February 23rd. On the menu of discussions between the head of state and the head of delegation were the conduct of the elections, which took place in a calm. The meeting was attended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohamed Ali Youssef, Acting Minister of Interior, Moumin Ahmed Shah, Djibouti Ambassador to Egypt, Mohamed Dour, and the Director of the Arab Department of Foreign Affairs, Minister Mohamed Douali. In an interview, Mr. Lamine Ould has recalled that the meeting with the head of state was focused on the conduct of the polls and the observation they could make. He welcomed on his own behalf and that of his colleagues the conduct of these elections in calm, serenity and without incident. At the end of these legislative elections, observers from the Arab League and the African Union made a press conference with the representatives of the national and foreign media. This press briefing took place at IGAD headquarters. Observers were unanimous in saying that these elections were held in transparency, calm and serenity. Observers traveled throughout the country to monitor the voting process in most polling stations. The observers come from several organizations such as the Arab League, the African Union, the Organization of the Islamic Conference, the Intergovernmental Authority for Development or IGAD, as well as the members of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Representative of the organization of the OIC Islamic Conference, who also visited Djibouti to oversee the voting process on 23rd February, also expressed their satisfaction with the proper organization of the polls. This election was held without the slightest hitch. Observers from four organizations, OCI, Arab League and African Union and IGAD, in addition to those of CENI, were able to deploy throughout the territory to go to the polling stations of the 6th electoral constituency. The Independent National Electoral Commission, with the support of the Ministry of the Interior, was able to set up some 468 polling stations across the country. And following these legislative elections, the head of the UDG-PDD parties, Ilaya Ismail Guedharet, has today made a statement to the press where she acknowledged the verdict of the ballot boxes. She also thanked her supporters, the voters who voted for her list, and all the people of Djibouti for their political maturity. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, presided today an official ceremony of donation of digital tablets offered free of charge by the President of the Republic to the students of the primary school at the Nassif City at PK13. The Secretary General of the Presidency, Mr. Mohamed Abdullah Wais, and many executives and officials of the Presidency of the Republic and MENFOP, including Secretary General Mohamed Abdullah Mahyoub, took part in the event. Many parents and teachers also took part in this official tablet donation ceremony. The Minister of National Education took the opportunity to announce that these tablets were offered free of charge by the President of the Republic to all students from the primary school of the city Nassif. Nearly 200 tablets distributed between the students of the 4th year to the 5th year. The Minister also recalled that deployment of digital tablets is a project dear to the head of state, who graciously donated these tablets to children affected by major fire incidents last summer in several popular neighborhoods of the capital. The Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Mr. Ali Hassan Bahdon, visited this morning, Sunday, February 25, in the locality of Ali Une. The Minister of Defense was accompanied in this trip by General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces, General Tahir Muhammad Ali, Acting Chief of the Defense Staff, and numerous officers of the Djiboutian Army Forces. Arrived at the scene, the Minister of Defense in charge of the relations with the Parliament was welcomed on the spot by the commander of the Battalion of Rapid Action BIR stationed in the military camp of Ali Arne, Captain Amr Ali Hassan. The Minister of Defense in General Zakariya Sheikh Ibrahim then reviewed the troops of the Rapid Intervention Battalion composed of 400 men. These men will soon undertake a long training specific to commando units. Their training in this camp will continue for 9 months. The Rapid Action Battalion, or BIR, is a unit designed for the defense of the territory. And before this unit, the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Mr. Ali Hassan Badon, wished to show them the gratitude of the nation and express strong encouragement to them. The delegation led by the Minister of Defense then attended folk dances where the military expressed their pride in serving the country with fervor, patriotism and pride. They felt that their incorporation into the Rapid Action Battalion honors them. And yesterday, the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Ali Hassan Badon, decorated the Master Corporal Guled Mohammed Guled and the medical aid Mohammed Hussein Hamadou, a civilian who had been kidnapped on the road to unity. Both men remained in captivity of 7 months. The 2 men were distinguished by receiving the Medal of Defense of Territory with bronze. Corporal Chief Guled Mohammed Guled was also elevated to the rank of Chief Surgeon. And this colorful ceremony took place at the military hospital Umar Hassan al-Bashir, where the 2 men rest after having undergone a series of medical examinations. The Department of Defense wanted to make sure that the 2 men were doing well physically and morally after 7 months of captivity. And this is in the presence of Army Corps General Zakariya Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces, General Tahir Muhammad Ali, Acting Chief of Defense Staff, Colonel Wais Bukhari, the Commander of the Coast Guards, as well as many officers of the Djiboutian Army Forces, whom the Minister of Defense presided over the ceremony. The Minister of Defense, Ali Hassan Badon, and General Zakariya Sheikh Ibrahim warmly congratulated them, and they wished them a good return among them. Under the auspices of the State Secretariat for Youth and Sports, the Community Development Center Directorate closed yesterday the Intercity C football tournament aimed at young people under 15 years old, namely category U13 and U15. The finals took place at the CDC Stadium, have opted for the U15 category, the young talents of the CDC RTD to those of the Neighborhood 5. Despite all their efforts, the youth of Neighborhood 5 were beaten to a score of 6 to 1 for the U13 category against the young people of RTD who stood out and beat their opponents. Anglais CDC and CDC Director Mrs. Ruqya Hassan Sheikh says she was satisfied with the smooth running of the tournament and above all with the talents and good play shown by the young people. Also in accordance with the instructions of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Muhammad Kamil, they will renew this tournament and also provide for a program for these young people. And now moving on to the international news, no UN troops for Eastern Ghouta. The Syrian regime continues its strikes on the last rebel stronghold despite the truce voted by the UN. According to Iran, Damascus will respect the ceasefire throughout the country. Expect this region. Yet it is here in this last rebel stronghold located in the gates of Damascus that the situation is critical. 7 days of intensive shelling killed more than 500 civilians, and that is why the UN Security Council have been fighting for a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire for a month. The main rebel groups controlling Eastern Ghouta have pledged themselves to respect the humanitarian ceasefire demanded by UN Security Council resolution. In Libya, 14,000 returnees to their countries of origin, a promise that came true. Between December and February, 14,000 migrants were repatriated from Tripoli to Libya to their home countries, according to the AU Commissioner for Social Affairs. Indeed, the African institutions had made a commitment to the EU-AU summit to repatriate 20,000 migrants stuck in the detention centers in Libya. The voluntary return program has already enabled the Organization for International Migration to bring more than 30,000 people back to their respective countries. However, it is still a hard time coping the order of potential candidates for illegal immigration. And at present, there will still be hundreds of thousands in detention centers in Libya. Some people talk about 1 million refugees, figures not confirmed by IOM. And this is it for this edition. Thank you and have a good night.